Welcome to the Tarot Tapestry, a weaving of self-discovery, where three tarot mavens put their heads and hearts together to offer their wisdom and insights about the tarot. We hope that you find this helpful in your personal journey to self-discovery and growth.
Join us as we explore ways to use tarot for self-reflection and self-correction.
Together, we'll discover new ways to use tarot to weave threads of understanding into the tapestry of your life.
Hey everybody, this is Angie with the Tarot Trio. I'm here with Kate and Linda, and today we're going to talk about the Hermit card. Linda has made a really interesting spread that we'll get to here towards the middle part or the end, and I wanted to start us off by just reading the card description from Benebell Holistic Tarot. And it says, "A wise man holds up his lantern as he stands on snowy peaks. In his other hand, he carries a walking stick. He's been on a long journey and has learned much from his spiritual travels. Cloaked in gray, with gray sky behind him, the hermit's expression is one of wisdom and placidity. He is neutral in the war between good and evil. He has transcended that war and found peace." I just really like that because a lot of the time, the first thing that I think in a one-on-one reading with someone, when this card comes up, it can mean that you need to be alone with yourself, keep your own counsel, but it can also mean that you might just be the smartest knife in the drawer at the moment. Like you might be the best one to answer questions, or it can also mean that you need to seek someone's advice, someone that has more experience or just different experiences than you bring to the table. So the hermit isn't always about being alone or being isolated or above it all. It's about finding your peace in the midst of everything that's happening and letting yourself make decisions and take actions from that place of peace and tranquility, kind of like you know your own mind about this. You've studied from sources that you trust, and this is how you're going to decide to go on. And then you light your lantern and you can lead other people along the way. And as far as this being the collective card for 2025 for all of us, because it's the number 9, one of the words that she uses in the upright keywords is erudition. It being an erudite. An erudite is someone, in my opinion, who doesn't just learn facts so they know facts. They study and they have the intention of really understanding what they learn. And sometimes to do that, you do have to pause and like take a minute away from the noise of the outside world and figure that out. But then they can synthesize what they learn and use it in their everyday life to really make the world around them a better place. So I just love that my relationship with this card has really evolved since I started reading tarot 1,000 years ago, and it's a much deeper card for me that means more now than just, oh good, now tarot is telling me to do what I want to do and just sit in my room, sit in my house, not talk to anybody and just do my own thing. But it is kind of about doing your own thing, but it's also about learning from people who know more or know different things about stuff than you do. And it can also mean that you're the one that people are looking to for an answer, So but when it comes to the overall collective thing, it's going to be, for me, it's about taking the time I need to integrate and digest what I learn before I really try to act on any of it or teach anyone any lessons, I guess.
When you started talking about finding the peace in the chaos in the outside world, it reminded me of the 2 decks that I'm using, actually one of them. It reminds me of the Hermit card in the Light Seers deck, because here there is a young girl and she's floating in the sky and she has the rays of what could be sun behind her, and she's just floating right above or at the peak of these mountain tops, and then there is this pathway like stairs that lead up, and that's what it kind of reminds me of. So having that peace amongst the outside world, like you had said, being able to do that, and it is it's not an easy thing to do to find that, but to be able to be in all that chaos. And I kind of look at myself as being a teacher, and the classroom can get very, very, very chaotic, and it can get loud and it can get crazy. And I need to find that way to kind of just be almost like in a little quiet bubble where, and my co-teacher makes fun of me all the time. She's like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, this happened." And I'm like, "No, I didn't hear it." I was like, "I'm in my zone." I'm like, because I have somebody else in the classroom, so I trust that she is watching something. But she's like, "How do you do that?" She's like, "How do you just like kind of block out the noise around you?" And I'm like, "Oh, it just takes a lot of time and practice to do so." I just wanted to mention that because it reminded me of that card.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And that's a very good skill to have as a meditator too. But the noise is usually in your own head, not, coming from little learners. But that's really the the crux of what I'm getting for, like, that's the feeling I have for the collective, as this being the collective card for 2025, is that um, just learning from sources that you trust, that are trustworthy, and taking time to really figure out how you're going to use what you learn to change your circumstances. So
Yeah, I like that very much because that is a um it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And it gets you closer to finding that authentic self that you look for. And it helps you just become a little bit more loving and compassionate with the world around you. When you can confidently and comfortably walk out into the world and deal with a lot of things that are coming your way in a way that is not going to totally freak you out, that's going to make you want to retreat and go back, into your house and just avoid the world.
right.
It's
Another thing that I like about the traditional imagery on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is that the hermit has just a lantern. And a lantern doesn't, it's not like a mag light, right? It's not going to show you everything that's coming at you all at one time. It can be more like, hey, let's deal with this thing, this one right here, or learn more about this one right here. So it's a way of approaching, I think, learning, and maybe learning things that are uncomfortable for us, or um, things that we're not so happy about having to learn about, in a way that is digestible, that comes at a pace that works for the person who's learning, or, giving advice or seeking advice. So
Yeah, and
that
that
I
takes
have.
a lot to be able to not try to focus on too many things at one time. A friend of mine had asked me to work with her on some things, and she was talking about these triggers that she has, and she finds that she has these multiple triggers. And I had said to her that the best way to move forward is to pick just one of those triggers and do kind of like a nice little deep dive into that one trigger and just kind of focus on that, and how can I work with this? What can I learn about it? And then what are some strategies or things that I can put into place that when I am met with that I'm not going to react to the ways that I was reacting before. And it takes a lot of discipline to be able to just do it, just take that one trigger, and it takes time.
Mhm.
Like the hermit
it
in the
really does.
Rider Waite. Yeah, he's like old and wise, and that to me is also a symbol that these things take time, and you kind of have to move a little
Mhm.
bit slower and in more detail or depth in order for it to last, for that change to last for a longer period of time.
Right. And I had something to say, and I think I just forgot. Gosh darn
We
it.
do a lot of that in this
Oh my
podcast,
God.
don't we?
We tend to
Tell
do
me,
that. We're women of a certain age, so just bear
That's
with us.
okay. We keep it
Um,
real. We keep it real.
really,
well,
I what
the
I
hermit
come
has been
back.
around long enough to know that as they solve one problem, the one that's in front of them, that also solves a lot of problems around them. So if you can just start where you are with what you can get your hands around at the moment and do your best with that, it will start to unravel all these knots that that are connected to that one problem. That's what I wanted to say, and now I will stop.
Well, one of the things that kind of stood out to me as I was reading different things was, well, first of all, I have to say that the Hermit is my favorite card in the deck because, that's just me. I prefer to be alone most of the time, and I'm happy that way. And I don't know if other people get anything from me doing that or whatever, but that's my happy place. So anyway, but one of the things that I came across that kind of stood out to me was the Hermit as a seeker and a teacher. So they're an example, but they're also a guide. So, there's the example of a person who kind of pulls away. And even if it's not someone who goes off and lives in a hut in the woods or the desert, um, it could be a person who says, well, at 7 o'clock at night, I turn off my phone and I study or read or meditate or do things that I need to do. And I'm available up until that time, and then I'm not available. And that's sort of a structured discipline that people can put into their day or their schedule, and take a little hermit time. And maybe it's not studying or meditating. Maybe it's like I turn off my phone from 7 to 8 because I'm going to take a bath and I'm going to relax
Or
because
nap.
I need to enforce this for myself, because I do better when I have an hour a day that's just for myself, or 2 hours or whatever, so, yeah, I think that people can get caught up in this image, and I know that different decks have different images, but people can get caught up in the old man in the robe with the staff and think about, oh, I have to go off and be ascetic and not have any possessions and live in a hut with no running water and that kind of thing. And that's not true. I mean, you can stay exactly where you are, live in your house, have nice clothes, whatever, eat good food, but you can still kind of have that feeling of retreat so that you can explore how the world is affecting you, how you're going to manage that, and also how you might want to affect the world, because you affect things even in our own little corners of where we are. We have the ability to affect things, and we don't think of that very often. I saw a thing this morning about it was a woman in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I think that's where Coeur d'Alene is. And there was a meeting of the town hall or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a public meeting in an auditorium. And she stood up to protest something, and the sheriff or the person who was running the meeting, I
It
don't
was
want
a
to,
private security firm.
but they started, and then the sheriff pointed to these people who were not law enforcement people under the city, and they came and they laid her down on the ground and tried to handcuff her and all this stuff. And this was a full auditorium of people. It was not just like a city council member where you've got a few people in chairs. This was like an actual auditorium with the stage at the back. And it was full. It was full of people. And I thought, and they weren't happy about it, but I thought, if every one of those people had stood up and moved in, it's two people and there's easily 200 people. They
Hmm.
could have just said, no, you're not doing this. You're not going to do this. Even if they hadn't even touched, even if they had just like turtled over this woman and protected her, they didn't have to attack those people. They could have just gotten between those two people and her, You put two people and a wall of 200 people between another person, they're not going to, and they're not going to just open fire in a public auditorium and kill everybody, So it's like,
The one thing that really upset me, because I watched that video yesterday,
yeah,
was that if you do watch it again and you look behind the two security guys that are literally physically pulling her and forcing her out, there were people behind that were going like this, clapping their hands.
yeah.
They were
I know.
clapping
There's
their hands
always,
and not even looking at what was going on. And then there was the guy who was speaking at the podium who just kept like things that were coming out of his mouth was like he was insulting her.
Mhm.
And what she was doing and almost like making fun of her for speaking her voice and wanting an answer to some
Yeah,
questions and then being forced to leave. And it was like the fact that people were applauding that just like disgusted me because I don't care if you don't agree with what a person is saying. We still have a right of freedom of speech. We still have it. We may not have it, a few months from now, but we do have it right now. And those other people who were clapping and wanted her forced out, to me was just like, wow. Like I
well, the
was
thing that people seem to have forgotten, and again, we're off on a tangent, and that's fine. That forgotten is that this country was founded by people who protested, and the right to protest because they didn't have that right under a kingship. Nobody had the right to say anything with the king because off with your head, right? That's what, if you want to talk about the founding fathers, this country was founded under that. And it's like, oh, well, they're I'm like, yes, they are protesting because that's what this country is all about. We can protest what we don't like. We can do that. You can protest that you don't want gun control or you don't want rational things. You're still allowed to protest that if you want to. But it just is like, oh, just got all over me, got all over me.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really, really frustrating. I have ancestors on one side of my family who fought in the Revolutionary War
Mm-hmm.
against this bullshit. The first war, American war
Yeah,
against this bullshit. Who voted for this? I'm like,
yeah,
Beavers, my brother in Christ. What the, what the, but everyone has a right to their opinion, I guess. Just you don't have a right to put your fucking hands on other people like that.
right,
And I'm
right.
so upset with all of those people. The same, like Kate was saying, like some of them are, doing the clappy, the soft clappy thing. Like, buddy, they're coming for you someday.
Yeah,
Like these
yeah.
kinds of regimes never get more inclusive.
And
They
then they
will
would be like,
eventually
"Well,
circle around and
I didn't think they
them.
would hurt me. I didn't think they
Right.
would hurt." It's like, oh, so it's like I've got mine. Fuck you. So that's
Mm-hmm.
your attitude. I have mine. Fuck you. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yep. Yep. So
So
that's
that, I mean, that kind of stuff is enough to make you want to go be a hermit. I'll
yes,
just get
yes,
back on track that way.
yes,
But
exactly.
the other thing is when you witness that or when you come across that, then you have to. I think it's important. You don't have to, but I think it's important that one does do a little retreat to kind of process it, to kind of figure
Mhm.
out how is this affecting me? How is it affecting me? It's affecting me emotionally right now, but how might it affect me literally in the days to come? And
Mhm.
how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to, do I have the courage, like this woman, to stand up? Would I be able to stand up in a group of 50 people around me and say, look, come on, we got to get, this is not right. She should not, maybe she needs to leave the room, but not that way.
She
Right.
didn't even need to leave the room. It was a town hall
I
meeting. And
know.
if you have
Just
seen
ask her to
other
sit, please
town
sit down.
hall
Your time is
meetings,
up. Yeah.
exactly, people shout things out all the time. And am I saying it's the right thing to do? No. But they do it on both sides, people
Of,
who are
of
pro
course.
whatever is being discussed
Yes,
or not.
absolutely.
So and and when I was watching the video, she didn't even like, she wasn't like rowdy, like
Right.
she
And she
raised
wasn't
her
like
voice.
trying to approach the people on the stage or
Yes.
anything.
And it was just like a total, like, we're shutting her down. We don't want any of this. You're going to just listen to what we have to say, and you are not allowed to object. And
Mhm.
it was just like, wow, like just wow. But
Yeah, somebody
okay.
was talking. I got back on the Nextdoor app, which I'm on the fence about, but mainly just to kind of know what's going on around in my local area. And this just reinforces, I've lived in Pueblo mostly for 30 years, and I will say Pueblo people complain. It's unbelievable how much they complain about stuff. But somebody made some stupid comment about reinstating the draft and how that would be great and all that. And I was like, I have finally had to post a comment, and I said, if you think that reinstating the draft is so that the army, the military can come in for, it's like there's laws that say there's a reason why the military does not police its own citizens. Okay, they're not a police force for its own citizens, and if that happens, I can bet you in about 20 minutes you'll be screaming the opposite. Don't hope for that. That's not something you want, trust me. And then I put, also said about, because he said something about protesting. I said, and in case you've forgotten your American history, we were founded on the right to protest. Hello.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Linda. All right. Did you want to say more about the Hermit, Linda? I know we got very
Yeah, we got off.
side railed.
That's all right. I'll put chapters in on YouTube so you can listen to it if you want to, and you don't have to if you don't want to. But you should listen to it, goddammit, and stand up for yourself and for people
That's
that can't
right.
stand up for themselves.
But I think
Yourself
the
safe.
hermit as a teacher, the hermit as an example to sort of let us process and figure out kind of what's going on within, because these subjects do bring up a lot of emotions, and they bring up a lot of things that maybe we hadn't realized because things had been kind of going along, and then all of a sudden these things start happening, and it's like, whoa, I do have strong feelings about this. I didn't think I did, but I do. And maybe you need to take a little time to figure out how to process it, to know how to deal with it if it comes up again, because chances are these things are going to be happening around. And just, and also to sort of look in that, put some light on the subject, as we say, and maybe do some research, do some study, or try to just figure out how you might handle that kind of a situation if you ever come into it in your own area.
Mhm.
I'm babbling because I'm just,
Well, it's so easy to get like freaking tongue-tied when it comes to this stuff because why do we even have to discuss this? Are you fucking kidding me? It's 2025. Like,
right,
why are we still having these conversations? Why is this still a thing?
right,
I,
exactly.
yeah, I'm not going to start because I will not stop. And I just, like, I already have a fucking rash, like, literally on my face, in my scalp, just like eczema, just from marinating in ambient stress and bullshit. And, you know, eh, I, I am taking a break from the news, starting from when we stop talking today until at least tomorrow afternoon, because I just can't anymore,
Yeah,
everybody. This is like what we talked about the last time we met, where it was like, sometimes I can carry you, but sometimes you're going to have to carry me. Well,
yeah,
I hope you've all done your warm-ups because
That's a very like a really good example of being in hermit mode, right? It's
yeah,
it's you can't, you can only take so much of what is going on, information, not even information, it's emotional overload.
right.
That taking time away and not looking at the news, is not a bad thing. It's actually a very healthy strategy to do. It doesn't mean that you're ignoring and avoiding what's going on. You're just saying, hey, you know what? I need time to do things that are going to make me feel good, listening to that is not making me feel good. So I'm going to try something a little different. And when I
Like you
feel like
said, you don't have
maybe
to bathe in
my
it. You
yeah,
can do
maybe
Yeah.
when my
whatever without having to
emotions
bathe
have
in it.
calmed down a little bit, I can go back to it again. I can think about, like there's a lot of processing that goes on when you're in your hermit mode and preparing yourself for,
Well,
what
that's
you're
one of
going
the
to do
reasons I
next.
don't have a TV. I choose not to have a TV. Now, granted, I don't have to turn it. I don't have to. I wouldn't get cable anyway if I had a TV, and I don't have to turn it to any news channel. But just having it there in a bigger form, like it's easier for me to look at something on my phone in a small format
Mm.
and maybe get some follow-up articles or something to read than it is for me to sit and have it blasted in that bit on that big screen in my
That's
room.
another great hermit thing too, is carefully kind of discerning what it is you're going to pay
Yeah,
attention to and for
yeah,
how
because
long.
I've
Yeah.
turned off, the networks and see it. They're all, any network or any news service that's owned by a billionaire is not going to give you the
Right.
truth.
Yeah.
It's just not.
100%.
So there's no point in listening to it. And so I've picked up a few independent things that I get, like newsletters or daily digest or weekly
Right.
digest, that kind of thing. And then they often have further reading or research you can do. And that's what I prefer to do.
Hmm.
So I curate, I hate that word, but I
Yeah.
curate my own
Yeah.
news.
It sounds very hoity-toity, but it's a
Yes.
really good word too. I think it's very evocative of what it means. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, who cares?
Yes, I'm gonna take us in a whole nother direction right now with the Hermit. Okay.
Good
So
idea.
I have this book and it's called Fearless Tarot, and it's by Elliot Adam. And I want to read pretty much his whole description of the Hermit, which resonated so much with me. So he says the Hermit symbolizes that the answers you seek to any problem can always be found if you look within. If you make time to center, feel your real feelings, and quiet mental chatter, your inner wisdom will guide you out of any rut. Sometimes the biggest block to hearing your spirit's inner wisdom is the fear of feeling something uncomfortable. Many people distract themselves from the discomfort and avoid resolving the imbalance. And that's kind of like what I was talking about in our last episode with the new moon in Pisces, when we were talking about one of the characteristics for Pisces and its modern ruling planet Neptune is this idea of escapism, of wanting to like avoid things. So, the hermit, although you do want to go in, can also be, maybe there's a shadowy side to it, right? That's kind of how I'm looking at that, as a shadowy side, to say that you don't want to be in the discomfort, so you're just going to avoid it, right? You're going to pretend like it's not there. The hermit represents the need to periodically withdraw from the world and reconnect with your deeper awareness. And that kind of goes back to what we have just been saying, that sometimes you need to retreat and then you can go back out into the world. Do you take time to regularly reconnect with the wisdom residing within your center? Do you habitually distract or numb yourself from what is causing your discomfort rather than looking at it? Are you conscious of the wise one who resides within you? And I love that question about I'm sorry. Do you habitually distract or numb yourself from what is causing your discomfort? And I think sometimes, like even now with what's going on politically, some people may choose to just totally like withdraw altogether from what's going on. I don't want to know. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to pay attention to it. And as much as I think that I can understand that, I do feel that it is our responsibility as a citizen of this country to have some kind of understanding about what is happening, because what is happening out there is happening to you. What is happening out there is happening to your family, and it is going to affect you. And honestly, just in life in general, you can't just ignore things because you don't want to deal with them. I mean, you can, but then you wind up living a pretty unhealthy and unhappy life. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. The hermit takes his lantern into the dark, uncomfortable places to examine what's there. His staff and beard symbolize the stability and wisdom that you can always find within. If you examine this card, and he's referring to the Rider-Waite-Smith card, you will notice he's traveling over snow. This symbolizes feelings that you have put on ice. The snow can also represent freezing or numbing pain. The gentle hermit comes with his warm, illuminating lantern and his sturdy staff of wisdom. These can melt the cold ice that metaphorically forms around the heart, allowing feelings to be resolved and released. Under his gentle guidance, he can show you the hidden lessons beneath the ice. Does your heart feel like it's keeping something frozen? Can you feel the feelings within your heart, or does it feel numb? And I really like that because it really talks to how our emotions, and you were talking about this, Linda, before, how our emotions really, really do play into how we react to things, why we want to do what we want to do. Do I want to numb myself and just, pretend everything is okay because I don't want to deal with the discomfort of those feelings that arise, or do I want to take time to go into that hermit mode and deal with those feelings so that I can not necessarily put it behind me, but that I can walk side by side with it as I go through life and not and allow me to maybe become a person that is not true to who I am or become a person whom I don't want to be. And I find myself now at this point in my life really, really contemplating that, and I love that this is a hermit year. And I'm really starting to embrace, the necessity for me to really start thinking about, well, what kind of person do I want to be and how am I going to do that? I first need to go within, right? I need to examine the things that maybe I'm finding a lot of discomfort with, and how are those things making me feel, and how can I deal with that? So I mean, there's a lot more that I'm going to go into, but I mean that I was going to read, but I'm just going to stop there because I think that gives a pretty, you know,
I
a pretty
really
good.
like that. I enjoyed that they talk about the hermit uh tending tending to your heart.
Hmm.
And it's paying attention to the state of your inner emotional environment, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And
Yeah, and I
y-
think a lot of things come down to, I mean, our emotions, our feelings, because they really do drive a lot of our actions. They drive what we do, they drive what we say, they drive that mental chatter that you have, in your head. It's a really big force behind what we do, and we don't necessarily live in a society that is very pro emotions and feelings. Yeah, let's talk about it, let's share. It's not like that, and I think that just
And some
creates.
some places and families and groups are more that way than others, obviously, but generally it's not like, oh, let's put work on hold and talk about our feelings here in the office. No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I see a trend, happening now where that is becoming, just at least something that's more on the table and put out there, like in schools with the social emotional learning programs that they incorporate. Um,
Which
so
probably
things
won't be
like
around
that.
much longer.
Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I live in New York, so, you know, maybe
Yeah.
things won't change as drastically for certain things in our education system. I'm hoping, who knows? You're right. Absolutely don't know. Um, but yeah, so just like the emotional part, because it's a very hard thing to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I got.
Well, that's pretty good, I think. I like that. Who wrote that book again?
His name is Elliot Adam.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty he just takes all the cards and he, gives his own description about what the cards mean. And I just found I found this one particularly fascinating. And of course, what I read you is what he talks about as the Hermit card upright. But
Yes.
I was kind of looking at some of what was being said as the Hermit reversed, maybe taking it to the avoidance and escapism and numbing yourself. And I really liked
Well,
how he
I really
talked
like
about the ice.
the talking about the ice standing on snow and kind of at the summit of something. And then the other thing about the card and the writer, and I don't know if you go outside at night a lot or go camping or anything like that, but sometimes when you have a light at night, it can be more of a hindrance than a help, because if you have gotten used, you've gotten your night vision and then you turn on a light, it can kind of take that away. And the thing I noticed about is like if you can hold it up and and he has his head down a little bit so that the light it's not shining in his face. He's kind of looking down and letting it illuminate the pathway. And that way he can kind of see what's going on, because sometimes the light, it stops you from seeing if it's nighttime or in a dark situation. You have to kind of angle it away from your coming into your eyes, otherwise it'll block what you're trying to see. And that's also an interesting thing as well. But I don't know, do you want to move on? I did this little spread, kind of worked on this little spread right before we started, and I didn't know if we wanted to pull cards for that
Yeah, I just
or
want to say
yeah.
one more thing about what you were saying and how the hermit holds the lantern and his head is down. And it kind of reminded me of like focusing, like he's focusing that light in what's just right in front of him, or maybe just slightly what's ahead of him, as opposed to holding it up and wanting everything in front of him to be illuminated, because that can be very difficult. But it's this idea of just taking it one step at a time and focusing on maybe one issue at a time, and
Right.
shedding that light on it, just to kind of help you um, see like what's going on inside of you. So I
Yeah, I
just wanted
mean
to mention it.
it's the other thing about, doing the nine, and again another nine, the nine of wands, kind of persevering and doing the one thing next and the next thing and the next thing, because we've all been there trying to clean up a house, trying to move, trying to plan a trip, whatever it is, when you think about the whole thing at once and you've got all this other stuff on your plate, it can be really overwhelming. So if you can take a step back and just maybe turn down the light a little bit and just illuminate right where you are and figure that out, then you can move on and illuminate that and figure that out, and just instead of being overwhelmed by it, the whole big bright thing. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like take one day at a time, like
Exactly.
from the sobriety and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are going with this tarot spread created by our dear friend Linda.
Okay, well, I called it the Hermit's Lantern spread, and I'm going to show you guys, but I'll describe it better. So it's a 5-card spread. So the fifth card, which is in the middle, and the other cards go, if you're looking at it on the table in front of you, and they're angled out from the corners because I wanted it to kind of look like rays of light. So they're not straight around, they're angled out. So the first card is angled off of the top right corner. The second card is angled off of the top left corner. The third card is off the bottom left. The fourth card is off the bottom right. And the fifth card is in the middle. So I don't know if you guys want to just pull cards for it or.
Perfect. Yes, I did. Should we
Okay.
read the
And I personally am leaving the Hermit card out of the deck. So
Yeah, I
then
did too. Mhm.
but that's up to you. If you want to put it in there and maybe the Hermit card shows up, double whammy, that's fine.
Mhm.
Um, so I think you guys pull cards. I'll pull my cards. You guys pull cards while I read the questions. So the first card, which is angled off on the top right, is the dark path. What am I not seeing? The second card, which is off on the top left, is the staff I lean on. What supports me in my quest for light? The third card, which is angled off the bottom left, is walking alone. What are my solitary struggles teaching me about perseverance? The fourth card is reaching the summit, and that's off the bottom right. What have I learned to let go of in order to get what I really want? And the fifth card is called the Lantern Lit. How can my inner discoveries or illumination carry forward into my public life? And when I say my public life, obviously I don't mean you're a public figure or whatever. It just means in your everyday life, out in the world. And so sometimes we do these things, our inner work, but we don't, and we make discoveries, but we don't always put them into action in our life. And so this is a kind of a question on how we can do that. So anybody that's pulled their cards, go ahead and start because I haven't pulled mine yet.
All righty. I pulled mine. So for the first question, I pulled the Three of Pentacles, and I'm using Tarot of Mystical Moments because for some reason my RWS deck has run and hid from me. It's in here somewhere. I couldn't have gotten far. But and it's a girl collaborating with two birds, and they're building a flower that's made out of bricks. And I think that that as something that you're not seeing might be that you have surprising allies around you, maybe. People who have access to different things than you do. Like this girl that's standing there, she can't fly, but the birds can, and they can all still build together something that means something to all of them, uh, individually and as a group. And then the staff I lean on, I pulled the Four of Pentacles, which is in this card, it's a very fancy Victorian dressed woman with a big lovely hat, and it's a collage, deck of collage images. So she's kind of like part of a house, and it also looks like she's holding a house and she's standing behind a rather tall fence. And that can mean like your territory. That's what you can lean on. You have a place where you feel safe and supported and protected. So that's what you can stand, lean on in the darker times. Walking alone, what are my solitary struggles? I pulled the Eight of Cups, and in the Tarot of Mystical Moments, it shows a ladybug lady, and she's walking along a path of rocks through a creek, and there are some dragonflies and some butterflies flying around, and there's a pair of swans and a pair of colorful birds sitting on some flowers. It's nighttime, and she's only the size of a ladybug, I think. Um, and so she's walking into some underbrush, some dark leafy plants, and you can see the little crescent moon up there. And the Eight of Cups is really often about having to leave behind something that you've put a great deal of emotional effort into. And sometimes walking away from those things is the sign of perseverance that you need, that you can walk away from something. It's not giving into the fallacy of lost costs. Have you ever heard of that? Like when you're being taken advantage of or you're being conned, one of the ways that people can keep leading you along is by you remember, oh gosh, I've already spent whatever, $500, $1,000, or a year or 5 years, and if I just keep trying harder to do this thing this way that I think it should be done, eventually I will succeed. And the Eight of Cups is about saying, you know what, I have done my best, and I just don't have anything left in me for this. I'm taking what I've learned and I'm moving forward. And that can be very difficult, but it's also very liberating when you are walking away from something that isn't really for you. And for reaching the summit, what have I learned to let go of in order to get what I really want? I pulled the Five of Swords, and this card in this deck shows a woman holding a big flower in front of her left eye, and she's standing with her back to the wall, and the wall seems to have the shadow of a man who's facing away from her. So they've got their backs to one another, and she's kind of hiding. I would say um, because she's very colorful. She probably doesn't want to be noticed. She's kind of like hiding behind a flower. So I think to get to the top of any mountain, you have to sometimes be seen. And even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't want to, even if you prefer to be in the background. Um, so I think, and also if you're kind of hidden, you can hide in the shadows and judge others. So that's also not a great stance to take if what you're trying to do is move forward and become a better person in life for your community. The lantern lit, what I got, I pulled the Hanged Man. And it's a beautiful card. There's a woman in a blue dress that's covered in clouds that looks like it's made of the sky, and she's hanging upside down by one of her feet. It's like got a she's hanging from the pull of a zipper, and what it is unzipping is like this beautiful wall of greenery, of pretty green leaves, and it's showing a blue sky behind it, and there's a little bird perched next to her knee, and she's got her legs in the figure four, but she's a ballerina. She looks very comfortable and serene there. And I think this is sometimes you just need to stand back and keep your mouth shut and let other people shine and be there in reserve in case you're needed. Very attentive to what is happening around you. She's not, spaced and out. She's hanging by her foot upside down, and um there's some little birds in the leaves around her. It's a very pretty card, and I think it can speak to like feeling really stuck. Sometimes when you get this, it can also mean to be patient and to not really blend into the background, maybe. Well, maybe to anyone observing you, you've blended into the background, but you see what's going on, and you are reserving your power, your energy for when you feel it will do you good, for when you feel like you can act from your place of inner tranquility and calm. And, you're not running around willy-nilly, wasting your energy trying to put out every tiny fire that some idiot sets. You are handling what you can get your hands around, and you're conserving your energy because, you might need it later. And you shouldn't waste that, I think.
Beautifully done, Angie.
Thank
Beautifully done. So I did get two of the same cards you picked.
you.
I did get the
Oh,
Five
I
of
love it when
Swords.
that happens.
I
Yeah.
know, right? But for different questions. So,
Mhm.
okay. So for question number one, what am I not? Oh, Linda, is it okay that I go?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. What am I not seeing? And I got the Empress. And I really love this because just yesterday I was thinking about like my self-care regiment that I have, and just how there are so many things that I want to do or that I can vision myself doing, and I just don't do it, like, and I know the question says, what am I not seeing? But I don't think I'm seeing maybe part of it is like that motivation to want to do something. Maybe I'm not seeing that. And maybe that's why I'm not doing it, because I can see the picture. I can see what it looks like. And I can even imagine how it feels. But maybe I'm just not seeing what's the motivation? Like what is stopping me? What is blocking me from doing that? And then I think also in that respect, what am I not seeing? Because it's the Empresses, um, again, I think it's just blockages for my creativity. Like what is blocking me from moving forward with some of these little projects that I have, like birthing them. Like what is preventing me from doing so?
Yeah, and
Um,
I think, I
Perfectionism.
just this is just I just put this together kind of from my reading, and I think you could add on that. What am I not seeing? What am I not realizing? What am I not that kind of thing. So it's not just that word seeing. So it's just like what is kind of
what's blocking me? Like what
shadowed for
is,
me, what is shadowed for me that I can't quite get. Like you said, I
yeah,
don't know why I'm not doing this. It's I know what I want to do. I just don't know why I can't get there. So
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, yeah. The number two is the staff that I lean on and what supports me in my quest for light. And I got my favorite card, the star. And I just, like for me with the star card, I think right now in my life is just hope, like really, really leaning on this idea of hope and not losing it, and just know that I am being guided. Um, I really do feel like I'm being guided by my spirit guides, and that I am being, yeah, just being guided to something better for me, for myself. And just in this time that we're living in now, we can get very like, oh my God, there's no hope. It's going to be horrible. But I really do need that hope is that came for me. Like I need to hold on to it in order to help me navigate a lot of the rocky roads and challenges that are going to come, that are going to come up. So I love having that card, the star card. Um, Walking alone, what are my solitary struggles teaching me about perseverance? So the Five of Swords. But in my picture and in the RWS, there are people in it, like three people. So one of them is like in my card anyway, and I'm using the Good Fortune Tarot. There are three people, five swords. There's that one person in the front that's holding up the sword, like victory, I am victorious. Then you have another character that's walking towards that person who's the victorious one. And then there's one a little bit in the distance that's walking away, almost having like this defeated feeling. And I think for me, I see maybe myself in that person that's walking away. Like I'm walking alone, um, because maybe in a moment, in a situation, I may feel defeated, but I'm not giving up. I might need to walk away, but I'm not giving up, and that I will continue to fight. Like I need to go, I need to regroup, and then I can come back and I can, fight another day, and not to allow um, whatever it is that I feel defeated about to keep me down, to keep me to like knock that staff right out from under me, like to get rid of my hope, you know. Okay, the number four is reaching the summit. What have I learned to let go of in order to get what I really want? And I got the Four of Pentacles. And I really like this card because I'm learning more in the past, maybe even after I became sober. It's amazing just how enlightened I feel after not drinking anymore. Is I don't need as many material items to make me happy. And I know that we hear this all the time, but it's just so true. I don't need a lot of material things to make me happy. I can get what I want out of life, which is just to be truly happy, happy with myself, happy with um how I show up in the world, how I show up for my family. And all of that doesn't require materialistic things. It requires love and kindness and compassion and understanding. That's what it requires. And that to me is like gold, like being able to show up in the world that way, and give that to your family and people that you love. That's gold. That's gold. That's me giving them gold and them, receiving it. So I really
I
enjoy,
love
like,
that.
not
So
feeling like I
beautiful.
have to hold on to
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, it's
Uh,
amazing how much easier it is to feel present when you don't have woolly mittens on your brain all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
you've really found your inner your inner tranquility when it comes to that. I love that.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's things that I like and I want to have, but
Yeah,
not
Yeah. I mean,
nearly as much as
there's
I had originally
nothing wrong
thought.
with having nice things,
Yeah.
and being happy to have them, but it's not like having the next iPhone is going to solve all your problems.
Right,
exactly.
right. Having those material things doesn't, because, obviously we know that there are many very rich people or people who have lots of money and they're lacking something. They're lacking something that makes them unhappy, and it's because you don't have that inner happiness. You may have those physical things around you, those materialistic things, but if you're not in touch with what is truly going to make you happy from the inside out, the money and the car and the big house is not going to quite do it.
Hmm.
Um, okay, and the last one is, oops, how can my inner discoveries or illumination carry forward into my public life? And I got the Eight of Swords. This card has been coming up a lot for me lately. Um, how can my inner discoveries carry me forward into my public life? And I think it's, to break free, to like just let, you know what, maybe it's more to continue letting go of the things that I am saying are preventing me from achieving the things that I want. Like,
Yeah.
I know that I have learned a lot, especially since I got sober. I've just learned a lot more about myself. I've learned to be in that hermit mode where I'm dealing with issues, um, and how that has helped me. But I think also just knowing that there's still more to come, and that, I still have some work to do, and I can be free. I can move forward into my life not feeling like I am trapped by
Hmm.
all of that mental, nonsense that goes on in my head. Yeah, that's it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be real quick because I know we're coming up on some time here. So I pulled for my first card, Dark Path. What am I not seeing? I pulled the Seven of Wands. And I like this card because I think in a lot of ways, on the face of it, it looks like somebody's trying to defend the high ground. But I think one of the things that I don't always give myself credit for is that I can be very persuasive, and I can be. I spent a lot of time in one of my jobs doing conflict resolution because I was a complaints manager for an HMO, and so I got the people who were really, really upset. They'd been through a couple of steps and hadn't been gotten the answer they wanted, and I got them when they were just really steaming out the ears. And I was, often, I would say more often than not, able to diffuse the situation and fix it right there. Sometimes I had to take it to another next level, but I always, managed to follow up on that and get it done in a timely manner, which is another thing. If you can help people it quickly, it's great, even if you don't give them the answer they want. But if you can resolve it in some way, that's a big thing. So sometimes I don't give myself credit for that. Sometimes I don't. And I think in these days we need people who can maintain their heads. And I have a temper, I'm not going to lie. And some of this stuff, just in the privacy of my own home, I want to punch a hole in the wall. But outside, I need to be, cool, calm, and collected, and not let it get to me, because the other thing is when they get to you like that, then they've won. They've won. They've turned you on to your anger, which anger can be very motivating and very constructive if you put it into an active thing to do. But if it's just something that's going to make you punch somebody, then you've just gone down to their level, and that's not going to get anything done. So that's what I need to keep in front of me. Second card, the staff I lean on, 3 of Cups, always my friends, my cronies, my people. So even when I am down in the dumps, if I can, send a quick message to Angie or get on my crone group or call somebody, it's like, okay, you guys can get me back on track faster than anything. So always a celebration. I mean, just because we're going to hell in a handbasket doesn't mean we can't still celebrate things.
Taking a handbasket.
And when I was doing that job, my nickname I gave myself was Helen Wait, because it was like, well, yeah, okay, if you're not happy with that, you can go to Hell and Wait. So
I like that.
that's what
That's
I
good.
called myself at my job, and people were just like, you're just off the rails. So then for my third card, Walking Alone, what are my solitary struggles teaching me about perseverance? Very interesting card for this. I got the 6 of Pentacles. So I think I need to learn, or what it's teaching me is that there needs to be a give and take. I don't need to give, and I kind of advised a friend who's very politically oriented, and I said, right now you're doing more than 12 people, and you need, and I love it and I appreciate it, and you're getting, that's your thing, but you also need to not deplete yourself into total exhaustion, because this is going to be a marathon. This is not a sprint. This is, because we don't know if we're going to have another election in 4 years. That's the thing. We don't know this. And so we have to prepare for a long haul. And I think in this case, I need to learn about balance. I need to learn what I need to give, how much I need to give, and be willing to accept from people as well in that struggle. So that's a good lesson to learn, that kind of give and take there. For the fourth card, Reaching the Summit, what have I learned to let go of in order to get what I really want? I got the devil. The devil made me do it. And I think that one of the things I need to let go of is telling myself that I'm not good enough, that I don't have a big enough voice, that I don't have enough to contribute or have anything to contribute that anybody would want, because I do tend to say these things to myself for whatever reason. I don't really know why, but there it is. And then the lantern lit. How can my inner discoveries or illumination carry me forward? I got the Knight of Wands. So this is the guy who's got the energy and the fire in his belly, and he's got his staff and his armor, and he's ready to go out and take all of his skills and talents out there and take on the world. And so I need to take a lesson from him on that. So
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love that.
That was
Linda.
beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm kind of happy with myself on that spread, I gotta say, because you know what? I did that in about 15 minutes. Not lying.
Yeah, that's great. I love that, because we showed up here to do this, and everybody's like, anybody make a
And that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, we don't have any cards. What are we gonna do?
Yeah, cool. I really like it, and I will definitely be revisiting that. I'm gonna put it in my little tarot spread journal, because that's
Thank you.
handy. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. I wanted to just mention one other thing. It's something that I did. So I've been like playing around with with AI and
Okay.
yeah, I play around with it on occasion. And I had asked it to, let me just see if I can find it. I have it here in my notes. Um so I asked it to create, oh, now I just lost it. I'm so sorry. This is terrible. This is things that you don't do when you're on a podcast. All right, you know what? Forget about it. Maybe another time because
Lose your train of thought.
my
Don't
file
lose your
just
train
went
of thought.
away.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it just went away. It's fine. Not a
Yeah.
big deal.
Oh, you froze up, Kate. Okay.
Oh,
oh,
okay. Yeah, another time. Another
Yeah,
time.
I was actually doing something with AI the other day, and I realized because I would say make this image, and so I'd give it, and it would make the image, and then I would say, and I would say, okay, make it like I wanted a particular creature with a sword in its hand, and so it had the sword, but the sword was like pointing down, and I wanted it to be. I liked the image, but I wanted the sword to be like that, and so I said, well, can you make it so that the sword is pointing upward? And then it gave me a completely different thing.
mm-hmm.
So I realized, so I asked it. I said, well, can you modify that image? And they were like, well, you have to copy the image and send it back to us. And I'm like, well, then never mind. So
Yeah. It's
it's
not
not
very
as,
creative. I like using
yeah.
it sometimes when I have like a bunch of stuff to do to like help me organize it. Like what order does it make sense to do this in? And it's pretty good at stuff like that, I gotta
Now, is
say.
it like
Better than I am. Sometimes.
Chat GPT? Because Chat
Um,
GPT doesn't do images.
It
no,
does.
Oh, it
I use
does?
Gemini.
It does because I mean I have the free version for it and it'll allow you to generate 3 images and then that is your maximum for the 24-hour period, whatever the period of time is.
Oh,
But if you were to pay and they have various
yeah,
levels, you would
yeah.
get more of it. I mean it's quite fascinating. I mean I've tried it with images as well and where I would ask it to revise or re-edit but I never could quite get exactly what I wanted in just three. It's
Yeah.
basically three
And I don't
tries.
know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I have Chat GPT. I think I have it on my phone, and I've used it for not visual things, lists and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I use DuckDuck. I've started using DuckDuckGo instead of Google, and it has a thing on there that says try AI. I don't know what it is, so I just did
Mhm.
that, and I was trying to get this image, and every time it gave me something different, and I thought it was going to revise the image but it gave me something different every time, and then I realized like when you click on a photograph or something on your computer and you right click and it says image location, you had to like copy that and give it, and then it was something you had to sign up, and it was like, no,
Yeah. Too much trouble.
too
But
much trouble.
Too much
it,
work,
it
too
can be
many
fun.
steps.
It's good to use. I like to use it as a thesaurus sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yes.
trying to say this thing and I can't think of a word for it. And sometimes it's really
But
good.
the other thing is when you do this with the images, it's a really good tool to teach you how to be very specific on your directions,
Yes,
how to give
exactly.
somebody, yeah, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. So
Yeah,
And that in general too. I think even if you're typing in and you're asking it questions about things, and they'll suggest to you the more specific and
right.
detailed you are in what you're asking for,
and
that's what you're
also
gonna get.
double check the facts that it gives you
Oh,
because
of
it's not
course.
as smart. It's
Yeah,
not as smart as you think it is. It's really
yeah,
not.
no.
But it's as smart as whoever programmed it was.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But it's fun to play around with,
Mhm.
something new and different. Got to keep up with the times. Got to keep
That's
up with the
right.
times. Yeah. Well, this was wonderful, ladies. Another great episode. I hope our listeners got, some useful insight into the hermit. And I hope that they give this spread that Linda made a try. And again, if you'd like to leave a comment on how you like the spread, we would be very much appreciative of it.
Yes, because I'm always willing to do
ready to talk about tarot for sure. So,
Absolutely. Can talk about tarot all day long, every day.
yes.